Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
MK.
And how are you?
Um, you know how I said I was ready to record? I have no idea what I'm going to talk about right now.
So you were not ready to record when you said I'm ready to
Correct.
record.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
I could have kept eating my fried rice, just perfectly unbothered.
Um, what did I do last week? I feel like I have not had a day off in like 800 days. Like to the point where I'm going to check my calendar right now because I don't know what I did.
You did a show. What shows did you work?
Oh, I did. I worked 3 shows since, no, I've worked a shit ton of shows since the last time I recorded with you.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, so since the last time I recorded with you, I have worked a Final Fantasy concert.
Oh
Final
yes,
Fantasy.
yes, we spoke
We
about that.
talked about how I was going to work that. Everything that I said about the kind of people that would be there was 100% correct. We
Sure.
were sold out.
hmm
Um, and some of the people who were there had never been to a concert in their entire lives before. They were not children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the next day I worked Paw Patrol.
hmm
That was great because I had a friend from college who was in it, so I could see him. But then also I am friends with the kid who was there doing Ryder's manager. So even though I like shouldn't really take pictures backstage, I was like, hey, like, can you take a picture with me for my niece? So I sent Zara a picture of me and Ryder, and Brie goes, kudos to them on like accuracy, because when I showed it to Zara and asked who's in this picture, she said Ryder and then goes, oh yeah, and NTM.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
I
was
think you're
like,
there too.
yeah. But I was like, honestly, I'm glad because I was a little afraid she was gonna look at it and be like, who the shit is that man with NTM? So like it's fine.
Yeah.
Um, and then I worked a Frankie Valli tribute concert
We
thing.
talked about that too, yeah.
It was weird. So that was the weekend before the eclipse. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, and then the eclipse happened.
Yeah.
That is a thing. It was very cloudy here. I got a pretty good picture, but like it was super cloudy.
We
It
didn't
was
see
really
either.
like I mean, it was really cool, truthfully, like being in totality and like having everything go dark enough that like the street lights went on and being like that weird feeling of like it's fucking 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I would like to go to bed right now. Like I don't know what's happening.
Mhm.
And it was cool. But it wasn't as visually stunning as I could have hoped for. And then I worked Mamma Mia, the national tour.
Ooh.
It was fine. I didn't like it. I mean, listen, I love Mamma Mia. It's cheesy. It's not supposed to be high
Yeah.
art, but like the women who were playing like Donna and the Super Troopers were like trying really hard to be like, I am such a good singer, and it was a
I haven't seen
choice.
this stage show, so I only know the movie.
I mean, it's very much the same as the movie. Like, there's really not a lot of difference. There's a couple songs that are in the stage show that aren't in the movie, but like, if you've seen the movie, you've seen the stage show.
Yeah.
It
Makes
was a
sense.
lot. And then oh, and then the other show I worked was a high school jazz band concert.
Fun,
That
fun,
was
very
fun.
exciting.
It was very exciting because it was like an hour of work. So, but I don't work any shows this week because
Nice.
I have to do bridal shower stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah,
I love that
so
for you.
I'm just, I'm just, you know, trying to not die
Die. Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
Every day is a new adventure in trying to stay alive. So,
I'm
um,
okay. I also did not see the eclipse. I was in Biloxi. It was also rainy, cloudy, kind of gross out. It was fine. I wasn't that worried about it because we would have had to go like way out of way to see like
yeah.
totality anyways. So it is what it is. But I forgot I did drive a whole lot of states since I talked to you. I did make it. We drove from Well, I had as you last time you all saw me, I had a 100-degree fever. It stayed for 2 days after we spoke. So um I'm fine now. And then I drove
Yes.
for 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been settled. I'm doing all of the things. And tomorrow, I'm very excited. You know how I keep saying I'm just going places for concerts. So
Yeah.
tomorrow is our Jesse McCartney concert. And I'm so stoked. It's at the Fillmore, which I didn't know, but is inside of Harris. It's like upstairs. So I've been to Harris,
Mm,
but I've never been to the Fillmore.
nice.
So I'm super excited about that. It's gonna be a nice little girls outing. Nick is not interested, um, which is fine.
It's okay. I saw Jesse McCartney when I was um a junior in high school. And my friend who I went with had just graduated high school. It was like the summer before my junior year, and she had just graduated. And we were like, I think we're the oldest people in this room. And she goes, and we're the only ones who haven't had sex.
What a wild time.
It was
What a
wild.
wild time. I think we're all kind of in the 30s era now for Jesse, so I feel like we're gonna be
Yeah.
in like the right time.
Yeah, I think it'll be a
Um,
much different crowd now than it was when
yeah.
I saw him in 2008.
Yeah, Rachel saw him a couple of years back. I don't think it was last year. I think it was 2 years back. But I wasn't there. So this is my first time ever seeing him live, and I'm
Yeah.
so stoked. Um, yeah, I my brain was not also not ready to record, even though I'm physically am set up to
Yeah.
record. So we're doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what would help me in these trying times, um, of figuring out what's happening today with life?
Yeah. I is it a dose of spiritual realness?
Yeah, realness,
Yeah.
guidance,
Guidance,
whatever, I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah, no, well,
Realness sounds a
because
little scary.
it does, but this one is because this one is a little scary. It's a little
Oh,
aggressive, but
good. Excellent. I love when you're very aggressive.
someone out there is holding their breath, waiting for you to fail. Make sure they
Ain't that the
suffocate.
truth? Ain't that the truth? That has been kind of my goal.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just-
all right, I'm doing my best.
yeah.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah. I don't really know if anyone's actively trying to make me fail. I feel like I'm at the point where I don't have a lot of enemies in my life, but I do have a lot of people that I don't give a single fuck about.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that people aren't trying to want me to fail. Not because of anything I've done, which I understand I have a biased opinion, but I don't think I've actively done anything to anyone. But that doesn't mean that they want me to succeed still. And that's whatever it is. I can't quit working and I just keep going whether I want to or
Yeah.
not, it seems. So it doesn't feel like an option to fail.
No.
So I'm not gonna if I can help it. But today, I'm sorry, this is such a weird start to an episode. It's been so like
I think we're about to start a like new show, but also like we're both really out of it today in general. And it's been a while since we've recorded, so we like kind of forgot how to do this, I feel.
yeah.
And we're about to start a new show. And full disclosure, I told Courtney before we started recording, I'm very confused by the new show. So I'm like coming into this from a place of I don't really know what's going on with anything.
Yeah, I'm very pleased, but I had like all of these thoughts set up in order. I was ready to go and then like totally forgot about all of them. So it's fine. We'll
It'll be
see how
great.
this goes. It's gonna be wonderful. So welcome. Welcome to horror of well, welcome to death and aliens. That's what I was trying to say.
We don't,
um,
we just work here.
we just work here. I am on my new page of Beetlejuice, which is always very
Nice.
exciting. I love when I get to a new tab. It's the shrunken head for those of you not watching on YouTube
My
with the other
notebook is
130
just a
people who are watching us. Who knows?
yeah,
Uh,
just a
well, it's all right.
it kind of has like a weird, it could be creepy vibe, even though it's supposed to be like idyllic.
Oh, it made me think of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, no,
Certain-
it's from Cambridge Press, so it's supposed to be just like a
Mhm.
New Hampshire farm, but I'm like, could be fucking
Sure.
creepy. I don't know.
Could be. Who's to say? Um, yes, as MK mentioned, we are starting our new show. It is Hannibal, which we announced last week. It has, as the time of recording, it has not been announced on Instagram yet, but it will be soon enough. So let's dive in because this is, I think, going to be a super fun ride. There's so much to dive into with Hannibal because of the movies, the books. I'm going to try my best to read them. I did do that well with Psycho. I did not do that well with others. So we'll see.
When I went to Amazon and typed in Hannibal to watch it, the list of things that come up, it was like Hannibal season one, Hannibal season two, Hannibal season three, Hannibal the movie, Hannibal Uprising, Silence of the Lambs, a documentary about Hannibal of Carthage,
Sure.
a couple specials of comedy specials of Hannibal Burgess,
Mhm.
and then Wonka. And I have so many problems with what that's trying to tell me. I'm like, is Timothy Chalamet a cannibal? I don't I don't
So
know.
it's funny you say that because I was looking at the connections as you do,
Yeah.
and I can't even find it now. But I'm on the episode. I looked at connections, and the first thing is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I was like, I missed the connection. I don't know what the connection was to Willy Wonka unless it was playing in the
I
background in one of
no
the
no no
scenes.
no no. There was a quote. Oh shit. Somebody
Oh, there was a quote.
Will said something that was definitely a quote, and I
It
knew the
just
quote.
it just says Willy Wonka mentioned. That's all it says. Oh, you know what it was? They talked about the candy bars when he talked
Oh, the
about
golden
the girls
tickets.
in the
Yes,
candy
yes, yes,
bars.
yes, yes,
Yep.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
It was for sure was like, I don't know
No,
why
but
this
there was
was.
also something else that he said at some point that I was like, that's a quote. And I was like, I don't know what it's a quote of, but it's a quote from something. But like my brain didn't at the
Yeah.
time know it. But yeah, so so yes, they did mention Willy Wonka and the golden tickets, but also I think Timothy Chalamet is a cannibal. So
Ooh, maybe. Maybe.
that
Who's to
I mean,
say?
Arnie Hammer turned out to be a cannibal.
Right. Oh my gosh, I just
Just
watched another movie with him recently. What I watched? Oh, we watched The Social Network. I realized I never saw that before until like 3 days ago.
oh,
But we watched it the other night and Army Hammer was in it. And a guy that looks a lot like Army Hammer, but it's not him, plays the
no,
other
well,
guy.
no. Armie Hammer, it's CGI'd his face. He plays both twins.
Oh, he's both of them. Oh, well
He is
that
both of them.
I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
better
yeah.
because I could not figure out who
Yeah.
the other person was.
No. He plays twins, and there's a body double, but it's his face on both of them.
Okay, I tried to look up the cast and I was like, I can't find who this other person is, so I don't know. That makes sense. Anyways, off to a good start. So, Willy Wonka, cannibalism, Army Hammer, Timothy Chalamet. Who's to say? We'll see what happens.
Wait,
Um,
weren't Arnie Hammer and Timothy Chalamet in Call Me by Your Name together? Wasn't that the thing?
was Army Hammer in that movie? Because Timothy Chalamet was. I also haven't seen that movie.
No, it definitely was Arnie
You're
Hammer. He
saying
was
they were like they were the pair, the
yeah, they
duo?
was there with the peach.
Oh, let's see.
Maybe
Probably
this
that
is
sounds.
not as
Yep, you're
disconnect.
right.
Maybe this is not as disconnected as I did.
We cracked it. We solved it. Everything's fine. Cannibalism. Timothy Chalamet, Willy Wonka, and Hannibal Lecter. Done. We did it.
Done. We
Great.
did
Good
it.
job.
We solved the world's mysteries.
We solved all of the world's mysteries. There are none left. Don't worry. Um, if you find one, come to us. We'll fix it.
We'll solve
Um,
it. It'll
we're
be
so good at that.
5 degrees of cannibalism.
5 degrees of oh my gosh. Could you that's I love it. I love it so much. A little terrified, but I do love it. Um this one is called Aperitif, which I don't like aperitifs normally. I learned. I think I have now tried all of them that have ever existed, and I don't like any of them. But it's fun.
Aperitif.
Yeah, just like that. That's how you say it. It
It
aired.
actually is how you say it.
You just had a little extra kick from it, not your accent.
Well, it's not my fault I can speak French.
You're worldly.
I am.
Very cultured. Um, yeah, so if you recall where we left off last time, we were ending American Horror Story in January 2013. We are starting this one April 4th of 2013. So we have not gone very far in
We
time.
haven't changed. Yeah.
So don't worry, I'll keep letting you know what happens in 2013. It
Great.
was rated 8.3 out of 10. Um, here is where you know we're in 2013. The number one song, Harlem Shake.
Oh, fucking
Um,
hell.
what a time. The number one movie is Captain America Winter Soldier. And the number one book is 6 Years by Harlan Coben. Again, never watched any of his stuff or read his books. I'm sure it's lovely. So this day was really bad for India. All of my facts are bad facts about India.
Oh, okay.
Um, so for those of you not in India in 2013, good job. That would have sucked. 74 people
Yeah.
were killed in an illegally constructed building, and 9 people were axe murdered in India. And last but certainly not least, this was in Sri Lanka, so it was a little bit from the
Yeah.
coast, but
Yeah.
still there. There was a giant tarantula that was discovered with 20 centimeter like span.
So
All
sexy.
bad things.
What
No,
day?
no good things.
What number day did you say?
4.
April 4th?
Yeah. 4
Okay.
4.
4/4.
Yeah.
I like to figure out what I was doing with my life at that time.
Yeah. I was in college. Oh, I
Oh,
might have been getting ready to go to LA. I don't remember if that, I think that was April, maybe March.
um,
What were you doing?
I I was registering for my last semester of classes of college and had my
Oh.
first paper tech as a stage manager for a musical.
Ooh, look at you. Saucy. I was that's 2014. I
Oh.
posted so many pictures
So when
when
I
that was.
posted that on Facebook about all the things about that I was doing that day, and I was like, when did I become a big kid? And one of my dad's friends commented on it and was like, oh, your last semester, when did you guys get so grown up and where have all the years gone? That friend who commented on that 11 years ago is my sister's fiance's late father. And this
Oh,
was and
that's
this
so
was well
sweet.
before they were dating.
Oh, I don't know what I was
Oh.
doing. I really have never really used Instagram enough. So I don't know what I was doing. Turns out it was not when I was in LA though. So,
Mm,
you know. Anyways, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty.
yeah.
Our director is David Slade, who you may know from
I
Hard Candy. I've never seen.
no.
30 Days of Night, which I have heard of, have not seen, and always confused with 30 Days and 30 Nights. Very different films.
Yep.
Very different films. And Bandersnatch, the new Black Mirror movie.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
last, but certainly not least, because how dare we not bring it back? He is also one of the directors of Twilight Eclipse.
Oh yeah.
So,
That makes sense because I was like,
oh,
David Slade, I know that name. I know that name. I
mhm,
know that name. Twilight, obviously.
yep.
Cool.
So, I didn't find a ton of fun facts about him, but he did direct a lot of music videos before he got into directing films.
A lot of
And
people do. A lot of people
yeah,
do, but a lot of them aren't good at it.
so he
Like,
had some big names.
okay.
He worked with a lot of like people that like I recognize but like don't know as well. But he worked
Yeah.
with System of a Down, Stone Temple Pilots, and Muse. And this was up into like around the same time that this came out. He was probably still working with them because he worked on the Feeling Good video they did, which was early 2010s, I
Oh,
think. So,
okay.
and he
All
did like
right.
8 of their videos, but that
I
was the one
see
I knew.
you. Okay.
Yeah, so he's got a little bit of a life thing happening there, doing some fun stuff. Um, so our writer is, of course, the one and only Brian Fuller,
Oh,
who we know from
Brian.
our Dead Like Me days, so we don't need to rehash, but he is
And if
indeed.
you do need to know more information about Brian Fuller, you have to go back and listen to our Dead Like Me podcasts.
Yeah,
Sorry, not
it's
sorry.
soups fun.
Yeah.
So. You'll love it. Don't worry. And of course, as a credited writer is Thomas Harris, who wrote Red Dragon, the first, and the Hannibal books and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But we will talk more about him, I'm sure, when we get to the films, because that's when
yeah.
it'll really be his time to shine. Our editor is Art Jones, known for Hard Candy, 30 Days of Night, and of course, Twilight Eclipse.
Yes.
So
Yep.
they work together. He also did music videos. However, his
Yeah.
music videos he did were for AFI and Keen. Um,
Okay.
but it was not Somewhere Only We Know, was not the video listed under Keen. So I
Well,
don't
then
know
I
any
don't
of their
know.
other music. Exactly. We looked him up the other day when I was at Caitlin's because we were like, what happened to them? That was that one song. Apparently they got back together and then I think they broke up again like this year or something. But like they were back together the last few years. Um,
Not
but yeah,
successfully.
not successfully. So this is going to be, I think, an interesting time when our director and editor are both got their start doing music videos and
Yeah.
then directed everything else together. So
Yeah.
so keep an eye out.
And
See what
I will say in terms of like editing and cinematography, the show is fascinating. Like, and I don't know if it's a good thing or
yeah.
yet or not, but it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. And we'll talk about it. Don't worry. So our star, so obviously we're starting a new show, so we're going to be talking about the main cast for a while before we get into the smaller special guests. However, I will include them if they're only in a one-off episode, if I can, if it works. So we're just starting with one today, and it's going to be Hugh Dancy, who plays Will Graham. So he is known for Adam, where he also plays an autistic character, Martha, Marcy, couldn't read my handwriting again, surprise, and Hysteria. These are
Okay.
not things I've seen.
This is not what he should be known for. His most
He
important credit is Ella Enchanted.
Oh, I didn't even see that. But I have only seen half of that movie, so it didn't stand out for me. I did note that he also plays an executive ADA at like on Law and Order for a couple of years.
No,
That's
he's
where
the prince in Ella Enchanted that she almost murders when she has to follow directions, and then they sing Somebody to Love together. It's oh,
that is beautiful. I did not know. I do think I actually remember that scene. He's also in like Downton Abbey, the new movie, and a
yeah,
few different
literally
things.
don't care. I wanted to watch Hannibal when it first came out in 2013 because it was the prince from Ella Enchanted. I didn't, and thank God I didn't because
Here we are now.
here we are, and also because I would not have enjoyed it. Because I don't really do blood, which means the show is going to be pretty difficult for me.
It's gonna be bloody.
And also, I don't know that 11 years ago me would have been as understanding watching his idiosyncrasies. Like, I don't think I could have
Hmm.
watched the show because I have worked now with like autistic children and things like that, and I still was uncomfortable watching a lot of it, which is kind of the point. But
Yeah.
I don't know that a decade ago me would have sat through that.
Yeah.
So
I think that's fair to say. And I feel like a lot of people have kind of like grown in that realm a lot, like because it's been so much like
yeah,
so much more normalized. We like actually are seeing those people as normal people, not just
yeah,
as in like the people that are hidden away, that you don't pretend like they're not actually autistic. So, that helps.
yeah, yeah. But
But
it also because of what the social issues that people with autism have are and how they present themselves. It's the same thing that we were talking about on Sunday's episode of Stargate about things that you just don't watch on TV. Like you don't watch
yeah,
people going to the bathroom, you don't watch people eating, you don't watch people like cleaning their toe, like cutting their toenails. Like there's just things that you don't watch on TV because they're not entertaining. And so people who are socially uncomfortable have never really been, until the last like decade or so, featured on TV in a way that wasn't the butt of a joke.
Yep.
Because the normal person watching TV isn't relating to it and wanting to be a part of that world. But then you have things like this show and The Good Doctor, and they just have just, those are the only two that I can think of, because my brain keeps going to Big Bang Theory, but that is
Well, there's what's the show with
the
the
butt of the
kid
joke thing.
on Netflix? Like
Atypical.
yeah, Atypical.
And shows like that where they're much more real about it, and they're much more like uh, unforgiving of the audience's discomfort.
Yeah.
And that is a new place to be in
Mhm.
terms of the vast history of television.
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, we've only seen episode 1, so we'll see if we'll hope it holds up like that. It seems like it will, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
So I do have some fun.
I mean, Dan has watched the first 2 seasons. He didn't never watch the third season, but he watched the first 2 seasons, and his complaint was only about the blood, not about the portrayal of autistic people. So like I think it'll be fine.
It'll probably fine then, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have someone on the inside. It's not either of us though, which is also fun because it's, I mean, Bates, neither of us had seen, but we watched American Horror Story. What did we watch last? Was it Bates? Bates wasn't the last thing.
Oh, Exorcist. No, we neither of us had seen The Exorcist either.
That's true. Well, we're doing good with that. We've
Yeah.
got a lot of good shows for that. So here's another. Some fun facts about Hugh Dancy. He is married to Claire Danes, which I knew but forgot.
Yeah.
His all-time favorite show is The Wire, which I will watch one day because it is everyone's favorite show. He is an avid collector of fake hands. Which I don't even know. I don't understand, but okay. And last, but certainly not least, in 2007, he auditioned for the role of Hannibal in Hannibal Rising. So he was tapped into this franchise before this show came out. But
okay.
I don't think he would have made a good. I mean, I've only seen him in one episode of this, but I don't think he would have made a good Hannibal.
I'm going to be honest. I Googled Hugh Dancy's hand collection and nothing came up. So
that's what it's. I mean, you know how IMDb likes to mess.
I know. I'm not saying that that's not real. I'm just saying if it is, I can't find it on the internet, and that makes me sad.
Well, there's a TikTok about it. Avid collector of fake wooden hands.
I believe it. I just want to see more. I want to know more.
There's TikToks. There's TikToks.
Okay.
All right. So everyone find your favorite fake hand and let us know. That's your homework for the week. So, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it, I guess.
So we have a strong start to this show. We have a home that has been broken into with a pool of blood, and then we end up seeing 2 dead bodies, and there are a slew of police. I before starting this episode had negative information on the show. I think I knew less than what normal people do with the show without watching it. So I did not know Hugh Dancy played Will Graham. I did not know. I mean, I knew who played Hannibal, and that was about it. I knew it was Mads Mikkelsen. So when he walked in, I didn't know if he was the guy solving the crime or the killer. I didn't know what was happening. Literally started with confusion.
So I do have more information than that. I did know more than that. I know that I knew that Will was an FBI agent working with Hannibal Lecter to solve crimes, and that the story is pre the movie. So I did know.
I knew there was an agent working with Hannibal Lecter. I did not know if Hugh Dancy played that agent.
Got it.
So I thought he might have been the killer, and we were seeing from his. I didn't know if we were gonna see into the killer's mind each episode and then go backwards, or if this is how it was.
That would have been interesting, but
See, could have been an interesting way to do it. So,
Yeah.
and also they didn't say his name until about 30 minutes into the episode.
Oh no,
So,
for sure. For
yeah.
sure
So
they
I
did
also just
not.
keep putting this agent, this man, this guy, like through all of my notes in the beginning because I didn't know his name and I did because I made a point to not look it up because like now they have to tell me. Now it's been so long that I'm going to wait until they tell me before I go look up his name. And it was quite a minute.
Yeah.
Uh,
I figured out what his name, I mean, I knew his name, but also
mhm.
I would have figured it out when from the other room while making me mashed potatoes, Dan goes, "Did Will find the body?" It's like, "Yes, that's what happened." And he goes, "Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you."
Excellent.
Also, he told me I had one spoiler before we watched this episode, just so you
Mhm.
know. Dan goes, "I can't remember if season one starts with the deer episode or not." And I said, "What the fuck does that mean?" Well, now I know,
Well,
and I really wish I didn't.
yeah, it does. It does. Spoiler. Yeah, so this man, who is Will, goes into he's already inside the room, but he goes like into his head and there's some kind of like and I was like he's doing some kind of weird scan and then
Mhm.
he does a rewind and it like backs
Did
up
they do
into
the gold pendulum this time before the
hmm
scan? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So every time he goes into his like thinking brain instead of the real world, there's like this weird gold pendulum screen effect thing. And that's why I said I think it was obvious that the editor and the director, like the cinematography came from like a music video type world because it was
yeah,
just a weird way to do that.
it was very strange and but it was kind of cool. It might annoy me before the end of the
Yeah,
show.
that's the thing is
I'm not sure yet.
it was cool, but if they rely on it too much, I'm gonna get real sick of it.
Yeah, because it feels a little clunky, but it's not yet, So it's
Well,
like,
because by the end of this episode, so we still don't really fully understand who any of these characters are or what's going on. So we're still
yeah,
kind of in intro land.
hmm yeah. So we get the scan, but we do learn that he goes through, he scans the room, and then he does a rewind in his brain to undo the crime scene so he can see how it actually happened. And so oh, I said I already love the visuals because at this point I love the visuals, even though they're a little bit clunky. They start feeling clunkier by the end. Um, and then we start backing up to the moment before anything happened. So you see the blood pull away, you see the like splatters come off the wall, and you see everyone come back to life, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
the image of the blood coming back off of the wall next to the like the alarm panel, that was fucking cool.
yeah, it looked like rain almost. It looked like they were doing like a rain,
I think what
but it was
happens
just
was they
red.
shot. I think that what happens was they shot something and then reversed the film. Like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
but
Yeah, so it looked really cool. And that was at this point I still was like, did this man do it? Did is he the one who did it? Is that why he knows? Because I didn't know who this man is.
see,
It was like weird.
because I knew who the character was.
Yeah.
It wasn't as weird to me, but I also wasn't prepared for the double layer of inception that was
hmm
happening.
Yeah, it
So.
was definitely very like high level of a bit of a time jump in my Mind Palace
I
situation.
don't know if I wasn't someone who watches TV to comment on it, and I was just like a casual like TV viewer who was like interested in
hmm
like the Silence of the Lambs and the Hannibal movies, and I watched this. I don't know that I could continue because it is very high art, like deliberate
hmm
obfuscating, like a lot of like multi-layered question marks. And I don't fully think I get it yet.
I think that also has to do with because it's coming from people who did music videos, both director and editor, because you see a lot of that because they cram so much in 3 minutes that it's always like, I mean, of course, there's some that are a little more in your face, but a lot of
Yeah.
times they do these like outward looks where it's like everything's crammed in, you get ups and downs, you get backups. Like it felt like that kind of viewing.
Brian Fuller is known for doing weird artsy
Yeah.
shit. Like Dead Like Me and Pushing Daisies and what is the other one that got canceled that everybody loved?
Weeds.
Did he do Weeds?
I
No,
think
he
so.
didn't. I don't think he did Weeds.
He did weeds.
There's one
I
freaking.
think he didn't finish weeds though.
I think he's. Oh yeah, he started on Weeds, but he didn't finish the show. It wasn't one
Yeah.
of his that I'm thinking of. Oh, Wonderfalls.
Mm,
Wonderfalls. So Wonderfalls, Pushing Daisies, Dead Like Me, American Gods. They're all real. But actually, I'm not going to talk about American Gods because American God was after Hannibal. The other three were before.
yeah.
Um, and they're all very like high concept art,
Yeah.
but they're all black comedy high concept art. So there's like a very niche audience, which is also why they all got canceled, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This is not funny, but it's living at that same level of high concept art, which almost comes off as pretentious. And so
Right.
I'm waiting to see where it goes from here because post episode one, I'm not disinterested, but I'm not sold.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. I think that's totally fair. Yeah, and we'll talk about some more of our feelings at the end as well. Um, so we do this, we have this analysis now. He's rewound and now he is kicked the door in and is going through his analysis of what has happened in this house. You see the blood splatters, you see the woman in the blood on the floor. He says the most horrible thing where he says that like she's paralyzed, so she's not in pain, she just can't do anything about it. So we know that this woman suffered until the very end, which is
Yeah, but
sucks.
I think that this is where it's clear that he's not the killer
Yes,
because
yes, this is where
he's narrating
mhm,
what the killer is thinking as he's doing it, but there's no emotion on his face.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So I definitely could tell by then. I still did not know who he was, but I did know that he was no longer the bad guy.
Yeah.
Um, so we also learned that this break-in was reported as a false alarm, but that also it was reported as a false alarm a week prior because whoever did this murder um came in and like broke in or whatever, had the alarm go off without them knowing so that he tapped the phone so he could hear all of the like code words or whatever you give them when they call. And so that
Yeah.
when it came time to do it again, he could make it a false alarm again because he knew all the codes that you had to give.
And he had recorded her voice to be able to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Um, so that's also terrifying. And then we jump to a classroom where Will is saying everyone's thought about killing someone at some point. I was like, maybe not quite in the detail you think we have.
But the crazy thing was, the case that we just saw was the assignment he
Mhm.
was giving the students
Yep.
was to like solve that case. So it was like
Mhm.
so many layers of Inception. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. And because that's the only thing with like Brian, like I've only watched Dead Like Me. I've not watched Brian Fuller's other
Yeah.
stuff. But like it had some things that were layered like that, but it was never
Yeah.
quite this
Mm.
intensely done and this like
Yeah.
spaced out that makes it, it can make it difficult to keep up with,
Hmm.
especially if you're going into this with a horror mindset. There are puzzles and then there's this. Like this is more of like it's more of like an Inception, like the movie. It's not like a regular
Hmm.
horror film.
Yeah.
It is not Silence of the Lambs. You are not going into this watching Silence of the Lambs. And
No.
so I haven't seen any of the reviews yet. I mean, this got rated 8.3 out of 10. So it's
Yeah.
doing okay in the beginning. But like when we do the wrap up, we'll look more into the comments and I want to see just how many of them are like, this is not what I thought was going to happen when we got
Right.
here. Granted, The Exorcist was very different from the movies, but still ended up holding true, and I thought it was really well
Yeah,
done.
but
So
most people didn't like it. We were pretty alone on
I
that.
know, I know. So I'm anticipating that
This
was
seems from what I remember had very favorable like
yeah, that's what I feel
reception.
like I remember too. Yeah. So now we're at FBI Quantico,
Yeah.
and we learn that Will is talking about his like diagnoses and he says he's autistic but he is closer to the Asperger's scale, which I think we've talked about here on here before is no longer the determining factor. There are other levels they discuss, level 1, level 2,
Yeah.
etc. But this is 2013 or 2014. And as I
Yeah.
learned today from my
13?
doctor
No, it's
friend,
13. It's 2013.
did I say 13? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I learned from my doctor friend is 2013 is the year the DSM changed it from being Asperger's syndrome to being more of a numbered scale. So they recorded
So,
this before anyone knew.
yeah, so totally, totally valid explanation for the time because that was what the DSM said at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, fun fact for you all. And then they also mentioned that he's closer to the narcissists and sociopaths because of that, which is also exactly what Rachel said to me whenever I mentioned the quote he said. And so I was like, great. So we learned that he can at least empathize with them. He says, I'm not like them, but I can empathize with them.
Yeah.
And so that's all fine and dandy. So now we're walking around outside with Lawrence Fishburne, whose name I learned was Jack eventually.
Oh, was it? Didn't never learned that
Yeah,
for
his name
me.
is Jack.
Cool, 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 cool.
And so Jack and Will are walking around.
I just kept being like, okay, so Lawrence Fishburne said.
Yeah, that's the first half of my notes. And we learned that 8 girls have been abducted, and they're all from eight abductions from campuses. I didn't catch if they're all from the same campus, but it is Minnesota
No,
based. They were all different campuses.
they're all from different campuses, but they're all in like the north or the northeast,
Yeah.
like they're Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin area.
Yeah. And it's very recent.
It must have crossed state lines to be on the FBI
Yeah.
table of where it was. So because
So at least one of them was not in the same state.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we learned the last one was very recent because it happened within an hour before Jack has joined Will.
Yes.
And
he said, when did you find out? He said 3 minutes before I walked into your classroom.
Yeah. And we also learned that most of them were taken on Fridays, but not reported until Monday. Different happenstances, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We don't learn all of them, just one. So, Will says they're dead. He's like, there's no question. He is gathering more people, which means the original people are not there anymore.
Yeah.
And he also says that really he thinks that this guy is only after one girl. The others are just options. And this is where we have our Willy Wonka moment where he's like, one's the golden ticket, but he has to check. He gets all the others because they're also fine too. They're just not the one he wants. But they're all very similar. So we see our interview with our family, and we learn that the girl that has recently been kidnapped, she left because she didn't like living in her dorm. She didn't feel comfortable with everyone else, and she really liked trains. Also sounds like she may have been a little autistic.
That's where I thought they were going with that.
I know. And then we never addressed it. And I was like, okay, we're just going to assume she's also autistic then. But she was coming home to take care of, and she really liked her cats. And she was coming home and she was going to feed the cats while they were gone. So Friday, she hops on a train. Monday, they get home and she's gone. And so Will asks about the cat. He's like, well, what happened? Like, was he fed?
Was the
he
cat acting weird? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, we don't know. What do you mean? And he's like, well, that was decision enough for him. And we learned that she was taken from this home because the cat was fed before she was taken.
Yeah.
And so they're going to look around the room, and she goes in there, or he goes in there and he's with the dad, and he tells the dad, he's like, you hold the cat, don't touch anything.
Yeah. But he also he says that because the cat is pawing at the door in a really weird way, so he knows something is up in the room. So he doesn't want the dad to go in the room.
Yeah. And so he opens the door and the body is there. And because of this layered
this is when I learned the character's name.
Oh, nice. I wasn't sure if her body was there or if he was seeing her body there.
That was my first thought too, because I was like, what the fuck is happening in this show? I don't understand. Yeah. But then the dad's reaction, I was like, nope, there's really a body there.
I was like, nope, it's not just Will. So she's back in her bed, clearly dead. The window is open, so someone has brought her back and dropped her off very recently. And also the police have been summoned. They are now here as well. So Will goes back to his scanning and rewinding, and he pictures the girl being strangled in her bed. So he knows that like she must have been killed here, taken away, and then brought back. Um, and so
Also, that was like a really aggressive strangulation. That was like knee to
really
the rib
aggressive.
cage. Like that was aggressive.
Yeah, it was wild. And then Jack, or no, there's another agent who's come in, and I've forgotten
What
her
the
name.
fuck was her problem?
She is like fascinated by Will, and I'm like, you have a job to do, man. You can ask him all his 30 questions later. We need to figure out what's going on here. She asks him
She,
if he's unstable. Like, you don't ask someone if they're unstable, especially at a crime scene. Like, what
I
is
did
wrong with
not
you?
care for her at all.
Me either. Um, and Will mostly blows off everything she says. And then he starts saying that the killer brought the body back because he was trying to undo what had been done. Um,
Yeah.
so that's fun. And then he gets a migraine. He's like, do we have any Tylenol? And so then he's on a plane flying back home, and he gets out to drive, and he lives in Wolf Trap, Virginia. And he finds a dog running on the road, which is just like wandering in the middle of the night. So he pulls over and just sits there until the dog comes to him with he has his treats for him. He takes him home and washes him, and then introduces him to all the other dogs, all seven of them. So this man just collects strays, and it's kind of cute for the dogs, but a lot of dogs for one person.
This is when I said I don't understand this show, and Dan was like, "What's wrong?" And he thought it was about like the crime stuff. I go, "No, no, no. I don't care about that. I'm not worried about the murders or anything. I'm not disturbed." But the man keeps collecting stray dogs and doesn't have a blanket on his bed. He just sleeps under a towel. I don't think I like this show. Like I was like, I don't, what is happening?
Well, I think he has blankets, but because he's waking up in the middle of the night in like panic attacks, he's just waking up dripping in sweat. So he has these towels to cover himself so that he is not.
Just it was just weird. It was like he was sleeping under a towel the way I did on my first night in Thailand when I had no bedding with 8 dogs on the floor in front of him. And I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yes, that is fair. But we do know he doesn't sleep well, it seems, and he wakes
No.
up in the middle of the night with the dead girl's body. He sees it in the bed, and like raising up, and he's starting to kind of like visualize it a bit more.
Yeah.
So we move to our next day, and Will is soaking his face in the bathroom of the FBI when Jack comes in to talk about.
But when he's soaking his face, he's visualizing drowning himself in blood.
Yeah, yeah. So he's got a lot
A
happening.
lot happening there.
So Jack comes in to talk more about the guy who's killed this girl. And Will tells him he's like, I'm telling you, it's an apology. Like this is
Yeah.
his apology for what happened.
Yeah.
Um,
They said that he put like elk fur in her wounds to try to like heal her because he felt bad for this one.
yeah.
Um,
Because he loves all the girls, and he couldn't show this one that he actually loved her. He wasn't able to portray that. And Jack just goes off on him, and he's like yelling at him, and he's just like telling him, he's like, no, this is how it is. He loves them all, and like
yeah.
he's like, well, then they would be sociopaths if they have this emotion or whatever,
Well,
blah blah. And he's like, well, it's different. He's like, it just
yeah.
is what it is. Like,
And he was like, how does he love them? Like all of these girls like died virgins. They had no like sexual assault wounds or anything. He was like that's not the first. I did appreciate that
yeah,
he was like, that's not the only kind of love. Like actually most rapists don't love anyone. This love is
yeah.
different. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah, he was like, he respected them too much for that. Like, that's
Yeah.
not how that works.
No.
Yeah. So then our lady scientist that we don't
Hate.
like,
Yeah.
um, pulls metal off of something of the debris. I couldn't really see what
Oh
it
no no no!
was.
She was analyzing the blood stains on the nightgown that the
The
dead girl was.
nightgown, that's what it was.
Yeah, the
Okay.
dead girl's like nightgown that she was laying in. She was analyzing the blood stains in it, and a piece of metal fell off of like the
Yeah.
pocket of the dress.
And yeah, so we now have that. And we flash over to a construction scene, and we see a girl. getting out of a car who looks roughly the same as some of the other victims.
Yeah.
And the back of a guy's head. So feels a little on the nose there for us. So then we
Yeah.
go back to Quantico. And we learn this. I said, this is where we learn Lawrence's name, Jack.
Yes.
And then so there's Alana who I said this was at Quantico, but I think this was actually at Georgetown because he's talking to Alana Bloom, who is one of the professors at Georgetown. And they're talking about how like who they're gonna bring onto this case, how they can find help, because she's like, I'm not doing this. She was like, you can talk to this guy, but
Mm.
one, she was like, I never want to be alone with him because, and he's like, oh, if he fascinates you too much. She was like, yeah, I'm never going to be alone with him, and don't let him get too close to it. Those are the rules. And at this moment, we don't really know who she's talking about, but we learn later.
Okay, that I'm confused. That's one of the things I'm confused about.
Okay.
Is because I I didn't think she was talking about Hannibal.
I didn't
I
either at the time.
I thought she was talking about Will. And then at the end, when she yells at Jack and she says, "You let him get too close," I still thought she was talking about Will.
She
But
is talking about Will at the end, but she's the one who
right.
recommended Hannibal too.
Yes, she's the one who recommended Hannibal, but I don't know that the conversations she was having, I that was confusing to me whether she
Mm-hmm.
was explaining Hannibal to Jack or talking about why she won't meet Will, like why she won't study
That's fair.
Will. Because because she said any book written about Will Graham will be written
Mm-hmm.
posthumously. Like she won't get too close to study him. And so I thought all of those things that she was saying were about Will. But then Jack says that Alana recommended Hannibal to her. And so I have no idea who anybody is talking about in this show.
So I also thought that way. And like now that we're talking about it more, I think maybe she was talking about Will this whole time, and
Yeah.
we just didn't see where she recommended Hannibal.
Right.
That's what I think may have
Okay.
happened. Because
Okay.
you're right, the things you're saying, and like she did talk about Will, and she did
And then
say at the end.
the callback
Mhm,
to it at the end, I was like, okay. But then you said
yeah.
that, and I was like, wait, no, maybe she was talking about Hannibal.
So
I
I
don't.
went back and forth. I have both things in my notes because I also went
Okay.
back and forth on it. And
Okay.
I was like, well, we know that because we also have the callback where he's like, Alana recommended you. And I was like, oh, she must have
Yes.
been recommending him at this point. I think we might not have seen that. Now that we're
Yeah.
here, I think we didn't see it.
Now that we're here, I
Yeah.
do think that conversation was about Will.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Except for that, it
Um,
also makes sense to say that you wouldn't be alone with him.
right. Like either is fine. But I think it's clear when she says not to let him get too close to it, it is Will.
Yeah.
Um, so we go back to the lab and they have been studying the girl's body. There is no evidence on the girl's body, like at all. And even like the rips in her hands, the scars, they're all from her own nails. There's no skin underneath them. Um, so Will starts suggesting occupations that fit the metal they found. And he's like,
Yeah.
just starts naming them all.
Yeah.
And then he starts his visualizing again, and he starts visualizing her body being pierced with what could appear to be antlers. And
And
so the
it
doctors,
matches the blood stains that we saw on the dress already.
yeah. And the doctors are going back and forth. They're like, it kind of looks like she had an antler, but it's four places. Like all this stuff is really weird. And he just comes out and he's like, she was mounted. She was mounted on hooks. That is why this is the way it is. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, that's great. That's wonderful. We also learn that he took out her liver, but he put it back in. Um, and that she has liver cancer. A lot of revelations in this
So
first
yeah,
book
because
with me.
they say why would somebody take out an organ just to put it back in? And Will says because it was going to eat it and there was something wrong with it. So then after he
Mm-hmm.
says that, they look more closely and see the tumor on the liver and was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So this is, of course, where we learn, and we have the callback to the movies that Hannibal Lecter is eating liver. So, or this unknown assailant is eating liver. Um, but here is our first look, 22 minutes into the episode.
I was wondering
Okay.
how long it was going to take.
It was 22 minutes. So we get our first look at Hannibal, and he is eating the liver as he likes to do. And then we jump over to Baltimore, and we learn that Hannibal is actually a therapist. And he's with a very distraught patient who is just overwhelmed, whether he needs to be or not.
I don't
Um,
know if this patient comes back. I don't know if you didn't talk about him as an actor because he comes back or because it doesn't make sense to talk about anyone other than Hugh Dancy right now. But that is Jacob
yeah,
from Fantastic Beasts.
it is. It is. Mhm.
I just
I know. I died when I saw it. I was like, what? Like, I know that this came out in 2013, so Fantastic Beasts was not out yet. But
correct.
I was just like, I can't wait to see the other cameos. That was my thought whenever I saw him. I was like, if
Yeah.
this is where we start, can't wait to see who else is in this show. Um, so we go to leave the office, and Jack is there to visit Hannibal. Um,
Yeah.
and he just goes in and he starts exploring the office. We learn that Hannibal interned at Johns Hopkins. So he's like top of the line. He had his paper was on the evolutionary origins of social exclusion. Shocking, I know.
Right.
Um, and Jack wants him to help with a psych profile for this killer or for Will. Again, that was a little, it was like,
That
which one
was
do you
very,
actually want?
very unclear. Yeah.
Yeah. So who's to really say? So we go back to Quantico, and they've been asking, they're like, oh, have people confessed or whatever? He says they have 12 dozen confessions. And I just wish they would have picked a different number. Like because it just feels repetitive. I understand 12 dozen is 144. But I
Yeah.
literally had to rewind, and I was like, did they say 12 confessions? Did they say a dozen confessions? Or did they combine the two?
They
Just wish they
combined
picked a different
them.
number. Um,
Yeah.
just a little nitpicky.
Also, do people really do that? Like read
Oh, for sure.
crime
Mm-hmm.
boards online and then confess to crimes that they didn't do?
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
the fuck?
I mean, there have been so many. Yeah, it's wild. And
That is
especially a lot of them, people will do it in
wild.
prison too, that are already in prison will do it
The people
for
who
things
are
they've heard of.
already the people who are already in prison doing
Hmm.
it to like fuck with the
Stir
justice
things up.
system or like stir things up
Yeah.
or like try to get themselves a worse penalty to try to get like death instead of imprisonment or whatever, or then try to use it as a bargaining chip for other information.
Sure.
That all makes sense. The weirdos who live in their mother's basement who are on the dark web doing it just for fucking kicks
Hmm.
makes me want to yeet myself.
Yeah. No, it's not great. And they know that they're all false confessions because there's no details
Yeah.
until today, because one of the cops exposed it online. And so now they are getting official details because there are pictures online. And so now Hannibal and Will meet, which, what a duo. If nothing else, I am excited to see how they move forward as a pair.
It is
Um,
interesting.
yeah. It starts with Hannibal asking Will why he's not making eye contact and him explaining. And then this is where Will says he thinks Hannibal's analyzing him. And he's like, I think he's here to analyze me, and don't try to do that. It's not going to go well. And then Hannibal also says in the few moments he's known him that Will is pure empathy. And so he can empathize with anyone, anything, anywhere, anytime.
And he was like, but
And
and that's actually a problem because he can like
mhm,
feel entirely what somebody else is feeling to the point
yep,
where it drives him mad.
yep. And he's like, so it makes sense that he doesn't make eye contact.
Yeah.
Um, so then we go out to this big field out of nowhere. I literally I rewound. I was like, did we jump somewhere? No, we just go into a big field now.
There
And
was
we learned that,
a new city pipe on the
mhm,
bottom when we went to the new field. Yeah, there
yeah,
was no connection, but at least it did tell us we're in a
right.
new
Yeah,
location.
yeah. It did tell us we were in a new location. I just didn't understand how we went that fast, but
Yeah.
it's okay. We did. And there's another body. I have husky hair in my mouth. Um, and we learned that they've been calling this guy the Minnesota Shrike. I don't know how you
Right.
spell it, but it's a
Shrike.
type of bird.
Mhm.
That because the way that the body was found and how it was like mutilated and tortured, like it felt the way a shrike does it. I don't know enough about shrikes. Do
Um,
you know more about shrikes than me?
yeah, basically everything that they explained is exactly what they
Mhm.
do is a shrike is it will take small mammals and like basically impale them with parts of tree branches to like paralyze them and
Yeah,
then rip their organs out. Also, if you don't want to know what that looks like, don't Google a shrike because the first image that comes up has a half-eaten and a mostly exposed rat in the picture.
great. Glad I didn't look it
Yeah.
up. But I
Yeah,
also knew you
no.
would know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I
no,
saved that one for you.
they're not really big birds. So, but yeah, they literally like will pick up their prey, like impale them and
Mhm.
then like crack them
Right.
open and rip their organs out. It's really fucking gross, actually.
Excellent. Yeah, and Will says he knows that this is a copycat because um he did not do it with as much care as the other guy had been doing.
Yeah.
And they analyzed it and they decided the lungs were cut out of this body when they were still alive. Which has not been the case as of yet. So
Yeah.
that's great. There's two of them at least. Um, yeah, so he says it's copycat because this guy's an animal. And he also profiles that this guy has an only child who is a girl and looks like all of the
Well,
other girls in the
not the one who did the deer,
right,
the
the
actual
actual
killer.
guy. Yeah.
Also, I don't know if this is true. I don't know
Hmm.
if we will learn more about this. I'm pretty sure Hannibal did this to test Will's ability to see what to like actually profile the killer.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. I also don't know if we're going to learn it or not. I don't really know how much they're going to tell us or expect us to infer
Yeah.
based on this first episode. But I
Yeah.
also gathered that because he made a lot of comments about how, like, oh, he can do this. Like, this is it very much felt like he was testing him. So
Yeah.
I do think that's what happened.
Also really
Um,
cute fucking way to test somebody, you creep.
right? Like, if that's not a, like, if that doesn't show you how this person is, like, my God, why did it take you so long to figure it out? So, um,
Because then we see the image of Hannibal cooking the lungs.
mhm. Yeah, that's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
interwoven through the
Yeah.
scene. And then we get the really cool visual that again, very ethereal looking, very like um strange looking, artsy.
Yeah.
Like it's not your typical horror scene.
No, it's
Um,
weird.
yeah. And so then we go to Will's house and Hannibal has come over. Uninvited, it seems, but he has come over and he brought Will lunch, which I think we can all assume is not a
Oh
good
no,
thing.
it was breakfast. It was breakfast. It was the next day.
Oh, it was breakfast. I wrote down lunch because I didn't know what time of day it was,
No,
but it was eggs. So
he said it was a breakfast he said a breakfast protein bowl when he gave it to
yeah.
him. I I know I said I don't care about the show yet. I'm not completely sold on it, but when Hannibal gave him this breakfast and said it's eggs and sausage and he went to eat the sausage, I was like, "Don't do it."
I know. I know. Ugh, this poor man. Will is gonna get so much human
And then he
people.
just
I
said,
know
"Oh,
it.
that's really good."
So many, he's gonna eat so many humans. I'm already seeing it happen. So he also Hannibal tells Will that he has a knack for monsters. And this is where they're discussing the crime in the field.
Yeah.
And Hannibal says they're just alike. And I was like, oh, no, you're quite right, but okay. I think they have similar tendencies, but
But
not quite the same. So now we go back to the construction site that we saw in the beginning, and
Mhm.
Will and Hannibal are checking the site because they are checking all of the sites that may have this kind of metal that was found on the nightgown. And this secretary,
What a bitch.
she is on the phone while they're digging through stuff and just flat out talking about them on the phone. She's like, I
It's like
cannot
direct.
believe. She sounds like she's gossiping with her girlfriend. down the street. Like not, but she's
Yeah.
directly in front of them. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
so funny. Um, and then Will stops and he gets really interested in one of the workers. Garrett Hobbs. I was like, I think it's Garrett Jacob Hobbs. I didn't write down his middle
Yeah,
name.
it's Garrett Jacob Hobbs, and it's
Okay.
only I only know that because they referred to him by all three of his names every time they talked to him.
Every
Which
time.
I get three names as a serial killer thing, but like it was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So he stops and says that does he have a daughter? Is she this age? Just starts asking all the questions. And he's like, it really tips him off that he doesn't have an address. He just has a
Yes.
phone number. And so as they go outside, Hannibal stays behind and picks up the phone and calls this guy, and the daughter answers. And of course, he asks for the dad and he hands it
Yeah.
over. And he just says, you don't know me, but listen very carefully. And then stops so he can listen very carefully.
He said, "Are
And
you
then,
listening?" He said, "Are you
yeah.
listening?" And I was like, "Ooh."
And he just says, they know. And I was like, what a way. So
Yeah, I didn't
what
love
the
that.
yeah. Not a good sign for the first
And
episode.
like, here's the thing. I get that Hannibal Lecter, not a good person. Like I'm aware that
Oh,
he's a bad guy.
I mean, he
I'm
eats people.
yeah. I'm also aware that like the whole point of Silence of the Lambs was like how reluctant they were to get his advice in the first place. Um but the way this show is set up, you like want him to be a good guy, and then when he does shitty things, you get
You think that
upset by it. Like
you think there's a turn. Like I at least would have thought like that he starts off, I mean, he's a therapist, so he's clearly helping some people and he's the police know him, so maybe he's helped
yeah.
the FBI before. So you think maybe he helps and then there's like a turning point that we see like this is what made him that way. I mean, we already
Yeah.
see he's eating people, so like that's not new. But it's not. He's just bad from the beginning. There's no saving grace.
Yeah, it was
Um,
disappointing.
Also, all I can think of is Carl, we don't eat people. That's what I want to tell him. Do you remember Llamas with Hats?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Oh, I
that's
remember.
all I can think of right now. Um, so we're back in the field, um, and Will is coated in blood, but it's in his brain because really
Yeah,
we're still sitting in the car. So back up
that was
again. Um, and we are not in the same field as I previously had thought when I first started taking my note because it looked like we
right.
were in a field. Um, we are at a house and we are sitting in the car waiting, and Garrett throws out a bloody, dying woman from the house and then slams
That
the
was
door.
that was
So Will, of
fucked.
course, yeah, it was insane. Like, okay, you're gonna get caught. Like it's you didn't even try to escape. You just
Yeah.
dove right in. And so Will goes to try and help the dying woman, but she's clearly pretty dead. Um, so he busts through the door, and Garrett is holding a knife to his daughter's throat, and 2 seconds slits her throat. And so, of course, Will shoots him. Um, and then he goes to check on the dying girl to make sure if she's bleeding out. And the dying man just says, see, as Hannibal's walking in. So Hannibal walks in very calm, cool, and collected, and helps control the blood flow so that the girl is not dead. So paramedics do get to the girl, and she is currently still alive, but going to the hospital. So we'll
Yeah.
see. Um,
Yeah.
and so we go back to Georgetown, and Jack has gone to see Alana, and she's in the middle of a lecture and stops to talk to him, and Jack asks her, he says, "Where's Graham?" Which again, did not know Will's last name at this point. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Who's Graham?"
Yeah.
It's fine. And she just says, "You said he wouldn't get too close." Not a good sign. Not a
Mm.
good sign. So we go back to the hospital because we do indeed see where Will Graham is. He is there visiting the girl, and he goes in the room. And when we walk in the room, we see that Hannibal is there and looks like he hasn't left her side. And that is where
Which
we end this
again,
episode with the two
fucking
of them.
confusing. because he just helped the
Hmm.
guy try to escape and ate somebody's lungs, but now he's holding this poor girl's hand in the hospital. Like, what the fuck?
Hmm. Yeah, no, nothing makes sense. Mm-mm.
I finished and I walked into the room and Dan was like, "Are you traumatized?" I said, "No, I just don't know what is happening. I'm confused."
Yeah. I will say I was concerned about who was gonna play Hannibal. What's the guy's name who really does it?
Anthony
Uh
Hopkins.
yeah,
Sir
Anthony
Anthony Hopkins
Hopkins. That's the one. I was like, no one could live up to Sir Anthony Hopkins. Matt Mickelson,
is
not
fucking
doing a terrible
amazing.
job.
Yeah.
Not too shabby.
No.
Um, so I do have some trivia for you because this is
Fantastic.
not American Horror Story.
Great. Love it.
Um, so in the very first beginning part where we see Hannibal listening to Box uh Goldberg variation.
Hmm.
It is the same tune that is in the 1991 film where he murders the cops in the cell. So a little bit of homage. Um, the bathroom, the red FBI bathroom that he
Yeah.
tries to drown himself in blood in, that is almost an exact replica of the bathroom from The Shining.
Oh,
I
I
know
knew
you
it
have
looked
seen it.
familiar. No, I have seen The
Oh,
Shining.
oh, you have seen it. You have seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's almost an exact replica.
I knew it looked
Um,
familiar.
yeah, I meant to look up what this was because I've heard of it. I just need to look up the word. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I did look it up. So the lungs that they use are really just mortadella, which is just sausage. It's
Yeah.
Italian sausage or luncheon meat or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Treated with food coloring, which
That
is
makes
nice.
sense.
Um, so an aperitif is
Yes.
served to quote unquote whet the appetite,
Yeah.
just like a pilot episode would of a show, which is why this was named aperitif.
Yeah, I get it.
Um, yep.
I don't like it, but like
we
I get it.
Yeah, we have a couple of goofs that happened. Hannibal uses a tissue to hold the phone when he calls Garrett,
Yeah.
our guy, Garrett Hobbs, but he dials with his bare hand. He pushes the numbers with his hand. Um,
Weird.
yeah. And then they make a point to say that all the victims have brown eyes to match his daughter, but Abigail has blue eyes. So,
His daughter?
mhm. So just
Oops.
a little bit of a goof. Um, but yeah, so that is my trivia for you. So now that we have ended the first episode, what are your thoughts?
Um, again, I'm confused. That's really all I can say is that at this moment, I'm confused.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. I think it's a choice to start a series this way. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not engaging, but it's a little bit of out of the realm of anything you would expect from
Yeah.
horror or from Brian Fuller. And so if you're
Yeah.
going in for either of those, this is not what you're expecting. So I'm surprised that people kept going based on just the
Right.
pilot. But
Yeah.
like if you take those elements away and you're just look at it for what it is a decent start. I mean, it's got a lot of things happening. It's a
The thing
good
is,
story.
the thing is, I have enough questions that I would
Mhm.
continue to watch. The
Yeah.
thing is, if I wasn't doing for this for the podcast, if I had like two or three more episodes that had the same artsy but super vague vibe, I don't
Hmm.
know that I could continue watching it if I wasn't watching it for this.
Yeah. Because also like you want to watch shows like, yes, like I mentioned, you want puzzles sometimes when you have, psychological thrillers and such. But you don't want it to be so highbrow that you can't understand it or that you have to think about it every second of every day. Like
Yeah.
you want them to give you some answers when you have questions.
Yeah.
And this one does not give you a lot of answers. It
I
gives you more
mean, it's the
questions.
same way that people fell off the bandwagon with Lost after a while because
Hmm.
the more the more questions they asked without answering, the more people couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And this, I got that the whole point of an aperitif is to like get you
Yeah.
interested, and it's like an introduction to the characters more than an introduction to the plot of the show, but like I'm confused.
Yeah, and it also goes off of the basis that while not giving you Silence of the Lambs, while not giving you Brian Fuller, it goes off the basis that you know both of those things before you start the show. Like,
Yeah.
and you, so it's
That's
like it
that's the thing is
doesn't
like
explain who
if you
Hannibal Lecter is.
yeah, if you have no familiarity with Hannibal Lecter, none
Mhm.
of this episode makes sense to you. But if you have a lot of familiarity with the Hannibal Lecter, none of
Yeah,
this episode makes sense to you.
yeah. And like I don't have a ton. I mean, I watched Silence of the Lambs, but it's been
Yeah.
probably 15 years. Like it's been a long time since I've watched it. And I saw Red Dragon or Hannibal Uprising. I saw one other one and I don't remember which one it was. Um,
Mm,
but that's all I know. And so yes, I know who Hannibal Lecter is, but
yeah.
that's kind of it. So it's just not a lot to go on. So it's very interesting the way they tried to portray it. I think it seems to have done fine, but I think it would
Yeah.
have made more sense to lean hard into a direction. If you're going to go Hannibal Lecter, make it Hannibal Lecter so that people know what's going on, not just
Hmm.
casually, vaguely introduce you to everything. Because also, if you're trying to get a new audience, you still have to give them something. So
Yeah.
I don't know, just a lot of weird choices were made, but we'll see. It may end up being amazing. Um, so and then I don't have any spoilers for next week because I haven't seen it. So who's
Yeah.
a punch in the face? Yeah, I didn't hear you. It didn't pick it up in the mic.
Oh, Hannibal for the
Okay.
phone call is really where I'm
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Since you punched Hannibal, I would like to punch the lady agent that was really stupid at the crime scene. I think she's an agent, but also a scientist. I don't really know her exact role. I don't
Yeah.
know if she's like forensic agent, maybe. Um, I don't know,
Yeah,
but I'd
she
like to
sucked
punch her.
too.
Um, so who's your MVP?
Oh, fuck.
Ain't nobody.
Ain't nobody. I guess Alana.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because she at least tried to warn everyone
Yeah.
accurately. Um, God, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go with Will for saving the dog and taking such good care of it. And,
That's fair.
genuinely trying his best. I don't know. I got a lot of mixed feelings right now. So,
Yeah.
except Alana, I like her. I mean, she did recommend Hannibal, and obviously that's a situation too. But this
Right.
episode was okay. She didn't do anything crazy. So,
Yeah.
all right. On that note, if you have any thoughts, feelings, questions, concerns, remember that we have not seen this show, so no spoilers, please. But feel free to send us your thoughts. Feel free to chat with us about the show. We'd love for you to join along. It's a new season and we're in it. We're in it. So
Yeah.
email us deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CECloud13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you Sunday for our Sci-Fi Sunday.
Bye.